My name's Gareth March. I'm a science teacher, my specialism being physics, and it just come to the end of my first year of teaching here at Southend. But I was here as a student before for 7 years, so my 8th year at the school and my first year teaching here. In science, I think there's quite a lot of opportunity to use ICT from, I suppose, the very basic of you've got interactive whiteboards and projectors in every room, so I use PowerPoint presentations a lot. No slide is just a slide to be looked at. Every slide has to have an interactive aspect and either a question or a task on each slide. Also in science, we've got things like what we call data logging software. So you can plug temperature sensors or speed sensors into the computer, and then when we do experiments, the pupils can see up on the board how a temperature is changing or the speed of a trolley, something like that. They can see that changing straight away. And a big use of ICT I find for myself, particularly at A-level, is the use of animations and like little mini programs like applets that allow you to visually represent a very abstract idea. And I think that really helps, especially with those struggling who can't picture these, like the idea of fields is one, which is a very abstract idea. You can't see a magnetic field. You can see how it acts on something and you can be told that it's there, but it's a very difficult link to actually understand what it might look like if you could see it. And I think especially the weaker pupils will struggle with that. So if I've got an animation on the board, you can show in that animation what the field lines will look like, what the field looks like around a magnet or an electrical field around an electrical charge. I can get the kids to interact with this ICT by maybe coming to the front, and they can move, for example, if I was talking about charges and fields, they can move the charges around on the board themselves. They can use the interactive whiteboard to draw concepts on, to draw field lines on the board, for example. But also, going back to the data logging software, it's very simple technology, so the kids can use it themselves, and I can set some kids up with a computer using the data logging software, and then they can see their results on the computer there in front of them. And I think that's great for them, and I think they get a bit of a buzz out of using something that they think looks like really sophisticated technology, which is actually very, very simple. I think ICT can narrow the gap to a certain extent between those who are underachieving and those who are doing very well, particularly with things like presentation skills. Kids whose maybe their written work would be very difficult to understand, both for me to see what they've written and also for themselves to look back maybe in a few weeks' time and see what they produced. Whereas if we use ICT, the fact that by the nature of how it works, it's going to be legible because it's typed face. So the kids who maybe struggle with their handwriting, it instantly gives them much better, much more useful notes for the future. I think the fact that it can, if it's not overused, it can engage kids that much more. Also will help with the differentiation, especially for those who maybe are just a bit disengaged as opposed to just a little weaker. If they're disengaged from it, if it's something they've not seen before, they've got that little bit more enthusiasm to try and give it a go. Also, as I say, going to A-level where there are a lot of difficult concepts, and whilst all the kids are strong overall, within the class there are obviously some a lot weaker than others, and who do struggle with these very, very difficult concepts at A-level. Using ICT with a range of other things allows just that extra dimension, that extra angle to look at an idea, to hopefully allow everybody there to find some way of getting to grips with what's going on. So I think through animations and so on, it's just another kind of weapon in your armour as such, to allow people who maybe don't understand it in other ways, they can try understanding it with ICT. Others the ICT might not be useful for, but they'll find it another way. But I think there's a lot who do like seeing animations and do like seeing videos and who like seeing things move around on the board and seeing these concepts that they can only imagine, seeing them in real life as such. I think ICT helps underachievers, those who are capable but maybe aren't engaged, just can't be bothered to achieve as best they can, because it's just another way of looking at things. Maybe they're used to coming to science and using a textbook or just putting their hand up to answer questions, do a bit of practical, write it up. It just gives them another angle to look at things. So they're doing things that they're not used to before. So they're using ICT for mind mapping, maybe something they'd normally just draw down. It's something different. And every time it's a fresh idea, I think you renew that little bit of enthusiasm. Like maybe they're normally sat there thinking, oh, I can't really be bothered, it's the same old, same old. Whenever it's something new, I think it's very difficult for any kid to not kind of, perk up a bit and be like, oh, well, I've not seen this before, I'll try it this way. So it's just another new aspect, a new angle to look at things, which those who maybe haven't been engaged with the previous way of learning it just want to try something different. And as such, it will get them engaged again and hopefully drag them back on course to what they should be achieving. Okay, well, I joined the school in 1997 as a pupil, so that was 12 years ago. And I remember then it was a real big thing having a computer room, because at primary school we'd had like a computer per classroom, and then there was a computer room at the school and it had the internet in it, and that was a big thing. We could go after school and use the internet, and to me this was like this crazy new thing, it's the internet. Well, obviously now everything, the internet seems to be everywhere and everything. I think when I left the school, well, I remember whilst I was at the school, I only ever saw an interactive whiteboard in one classroom, and it was quite a big thing that this teacher had an interactive whiteboard, and we were a bit kind of like, well, this is, this crazy new thing to use. And now I come back and I think just about every classroom has an interactive whiteboard. So that's obviously a big thing that's changed. The data loggers, they were there, so we still use them now. We've got more sophisticated software that's just makes it easier to use. It means you haven't got to spend 10 minutes of your lesson trying to set up these data loggers and on a tiny little screen. It means now we can put the information straight onto the projector so the kids can see it straight away. So I think I've seen a big change there. I put my resources on the interactive whiteboard, and I think the thing I find that helps with is just make it quicker. You can have a quicker, sharper aspect to your lesson. If it's, for example, a quick starter could be I've got 5 pictures of animals up on the interactive whiteboard, and it's like, okay, which of each of these animals are adapted to their environment and how are they adapted to their environment? And it just makes it very simple to instantly for the kids to see these animals, look at them and start talking about them, a lot better than maybe saying, there's a tiger, try and picture a tiger, how is it adapted and so on. So it allows you to be a lot sharper and quicker and get a bit more of a pace to the lesson, because you can have these resources pre-prepared, and that's where I've tried to use it a lot. So this year I've tried to, just about every lesson I've made a PowerPoint with these tasks and activities on them, knowing that this time next year, when I'm come to teaching these things again, they'll be there, ready to go. I won't have to write everything up again. I can just take it off my memory stick, good to go again for next year. So for me, I find that very useful, because if I plan it once, it's there to stay. I won't lose bits of paper, which I'd do otherwise. So I think it saves me time, and it allows the kids to have a lesson that's almost completely pre-prepared and just straight ready to go. And also means if a kid misses a lesson, particularly sixth form, because they're out for visits, if one of them misses a lesson, I'll put my PowerPoint up on the internet so they can have a look at it, they can see what the key ideas from the lesson were, then if they've got any problems they can come and see me, and it just makes it a lot easier for them to catch up with their work rather than us trying to find a time where we're both free and so on and so forth. They can just go on the internet, have a look at it, any questions they've then got they can come and see me, and they're caught up a lot quicker. So I found that aspect of it very useful as well. As far as attainment and engagement are concerned, I think in the vast majority of cases, they basically go hand in hand with one another. So you could have a pupil who's maybe towards the weaker end of a class, but if they're very enthusiastic, really engaged in the work, they can achieve quite well. Likewise, if there's a kid who's naturally has very good ability and is very strong, but just can't be bothered and is disengaged, they can then underachieve. So I think more often than not, if you're engaged, you'll do well. On the whole, it's good to see the more engaged and enthusiastic a kid is, the better they will do in their works. If you're nervous, worried about using ICT, I'd say just give it a go, and inevitably it will go wrong now and again, and it does, but it's all part of your learning curve, I suppose, and when it goes right, it's really, really good and it's really useful. So I think it's well worth giving it a go, and I think the more you use it, the more you'll realise that it will, as much as you make your lessons better, more engaging, it will save you time and effort, which is also nothing but a good thing as far as I'm concerned. So if you think that the kids know more about ICT than you, then you're probably right. I'm pretty sure they know more about ICT than I do, but I see that as a good thing, because they can help the lesson go along. If something goes wrong, more often than not, I'm like, kids, what do I do here? And they'll tell you what to do. And because they know a lot about ICT, they've been using computers since they were so young, it means you're not having to teach them how to use a computer to begin with. They know what to do to begin with, and they can just get on with it. So I think it's only a good thing that they know that much about ICT. And I've never had a kid, try and be like, oh, I know more than you. It's more often like, oh, sir, you do it like this. And then it's helpful for you and for them, because you're both working out how to do it together.